Hi everyone, today I'm going to share with you how to do calligraphy using embossing. So I have two samples here. This one is done with a bullet nib embossing pen and this one is done with a brush nib embossing pen. What do you need to do embossing with calligraphy? Well, first of all, you need a heat gun. This is different from a hair dryer. I'll put some affiliate shopping links in the comments below so that you can find what I'm talking about. There's many brands of the heat guns. You just have to be very careful with them, and I mean, they get very hot, so you don't want to burn yourself. And along the same lines, you do want a nice mat. I have a silicone mat here. This is a Heidi Swapp silicone mat. You could use a baking mat that is silicone. There's many craft mats that are heat resistant. So heat gun, craft mat, then we have embossing powder. There are many different brands and many colors as well. We're going to sample a few different kinds. I have a light blue one, a silver, a sparkly gold, and a white. And we'll also use different kinds of cardstock. So the cardstock, the only thing I'd recommend is you can get it anywhere at craft stores, that it is smooth. So some cardstock has a textured side, and it's best that you work with the other side, but you can actually experiment and maybe come up with some cool effects with this side as well. And then last but not least, you need an embossing pen. So there are a number on the market. I have a few brands here. I have the, this is sold in a 2-pack as well. This one is Ranger Bullet and Brush Perfect Medium pens, and they have, here is the brush tip. And you can see it's kind of a yellowish white nib. So embossing ink usually is clear, but Ranger does have a black embossing ink pen as well. I do not have the black one. I just have these two. So that's the bullet nib. So you can do brush lettering, but you can also do regular lettering plus faux calligraphy, which a lot of people do use because the embossing brush pens often break down very quickly. Here is the Versamarker, and Versamarker is Tsukiniko's version of the brush marker. I really like the Versamarker. I don't use it that often, so my brush tip is fairly good. It's quite a nice thick brush tip, and the other side is a bullet tip. So even when your brush tip wears down, you can always use the bullet tip and do some calligraphy with that. And the last set I have is this really cool set of 4 embossed twin tip markers. So you have a variety of different tips. You have bullet tips and chisel tips and brush tips as well. So I will take some of these out, and these are Zig Kurataki's embossing pens. So let's take a look and what you need to do. One more important thing that I do have that you will be using is I just have some scrap paper. I have folded, and this is for the embossing process that you'll see in a minute. So let's give this a try. Let's start out with the white paper, and we'll start out with the Versamarker with the blue American Crafts Zing embossing powder. Now there's many different finishes of embossing powder. I'll zoom in and then you can see a little bit better. So I will write the word hello. And the thing is, because it's clear ink, you're not going to see it. And it can be a little bit challenging, you know, in terms of where you're writing. It's hard to see, but you do your best, and I can see it. It might be very hard for you to see. Now, embossing ink is clear ink that is slow drying and it's sticky. So what does that mean, it's sticky? That means the powder will stick to it when you add it. So I'm going to put my sheet under here. I'm going to take that blue embossing powder, and I very liberally dump it on. Some people don't dump like this, but I do. Then I'm going to shake it off. You can see the word hello there. Now there are some spots. My brush Versamarker is a little bit dry, so there are some spots that didn't get covered. When I see that, I sometimes, you know, apply the powder again to make sure I get coverage. But like I said, my pen is a little bit dry. It's fairly old, so I might not get perfect coverage, but you can at least see what it's going to do. All right, the next step is to put away your embossing powder, move it aside, or better yet, you will dump it back into your little container. And this is a really important part because you do not want to heat this embossing powder container or the loose embossing powder at all. So we now take this and we take our heat gun. Now with our heat gun, we're going to heat it up. So I'll turn this on. It's going to be loud, but I just want you to keep in mind that you are going to move the heat gun slowly over here. You're going to avoid your fingers. Some people use tweezers, but I'm quite confident that I can hold this. And your goal is just not to burn your paper. Your goal is to slowly move over the embossing powder and actually and have it melt and without burning anything. So here we go. There, you can see that beautiful, shiny, raised finish, and it's not sparkly, it's just shiny and glossy and raised. And again, my pen, because my brush pen was a little bit old, you know, I should have gone over those areas, but you can see the effect that you're going to create. Now, the other thing to keep in mind is you can actually apply other mediums now on top, and that this will be a resist if you choose to do so, like whether it's watercolor paint or ink. So let's try on something else. We are going to let's use this blue one, and we'll use some silver embossing powder, and we will use the Ranger, let's use the Ranger bullet nib, and I will write the word, just in script, I'll write the word believe. And again, I know you can't really see this very well, but I can actually see this pen is new and it's quite wet. So I'll hold it up to see if you can see a bit of a shine there and catch that clear ink is definitely there. So let's take this piece of paper. Oh, I'm going to fold it. It's not folded. And I don't actually let I know this is slow drying, but I don't let it sit for a long time, like I'm not going to go out for coffee with my friends. I will work fairly quickly when I am embossing because it can dry. And we'll dump it off. You can see it's sticking in some areas. The other thing to have on hand, which is important, is a paintbrush, a fine paintbrush, and you can clean up a lot of stray bits of embossing powder if they do happen to stick. The other trick that a lot of people use is they take a dryer sheet and they wipe their cardstock with the dryer sheet to avoid static, and then you get a nice clean imprint. Ooh, I already made a boo-boo there. Okay, so I'm going to put this aside and heat it up. And here's the price point, it's $6.30. Okay, the key is not to smudge it like I did there. You do not want to touch that area because the powder is not stuck on. It's just hanging on because that sticky adhesive part. So here I go, I will heat it up, and it's noisy, so I will put it on fast forward. There, that's so pretty. Can you see the shine and gloss? So this is a matte metallic silver. This is Ranger's silver embossing powder. Now, the one difference that I didn't mention in embossing powder is that there is different kind of thicknesses of it. So this is a super fine detail embossing powder, and in general, I find that the super fine, like that, is actually very conducive to calligraphy, so I would recommend using superfine, or it's also called detail. But you can see how pretty that is on that dark paper, that silver believes. So it'd be great for any kind of a card or a gift tag or anything. You can actually use embossing powder on glass and wood and plastic. You just have to be careful with the heat. All right, so for this next one, I'm going to use the brush tip with the Ranger embossing pen, and then we will write the word, I'm going to write the word joy, and we are going to use this nice gold. The gold is really a wow embossing powder to use. And again, this is very light. I always worry about it being too dry, and then I go over it and I mess it up. So I think it should be fine. Did I put a tail on this Y? I might have two tails now because I'm not paying attention. Okay, I'm going to take my paper underneath. I'm going to add the embossing powder, and we're going to work with the gold. So this gold is Colorbox Gold Sparkle. So if you look at the difference between what we were using before, this gold has a sparkle in it. It has like a glitter. So there's definitely differences. There's just opaque and matte finishes, there's glossy finishes, and there's sparkle finishes, metallic finishes. So just keep that in mind when you are purchasing your embossing powder. But you can see already that looks like it's a glitter. Look how glittery that is, like that. So I'm going to put this away. And you know, the sky's the limit really when it comes to the type of paper you're using and the color of embossing powders. Once you get into this, it's really quite addictive. Okay, so let's heat this up. Again, you want to watch your fingers. You want to move your gun. And you do want to avoid touching this right after it's heated. It's still quite hot. So you can see that the shine actually comes out even more, and it's so, so beautiful. Isn't that pretty? Okay, so the last set of pens we're going to take a look at are the zigs. And so let's just make a few marks on, we'll use the black so it's so visible. And let's try a few of the different tips and see how they look on the black. So let's do, here's a thick bullet tip, and I'm just going to basically go across the black. I'm going to do the thin bullet, just lines so we get an idea. This is the chisel. That would be a lot of fun for those of you who use do that type of calligraphy, and a thin chisel. Wow, there's like 8 pens in one. This looks like another bullet that's a little bit larger. This is like a slanted chisel. Oh, this is like a scroll tip. That's interesting. That will be fun. A scroll pen can do some really cool calligraphy. And then there's the brush. We know what the brush does, so I'm not going to work with the brush. But let's go back with our, I'm going to use a fine detail. Make sure I use a fine detail powder with this because it is so small and narrow, some of these tips. So I'll go back to the Ranger Silver and do the dump. And you dump it off. Look at those cool marks from that Zig embossing pen kit. You want to be careful when tapping it as well, because you don't want to tap it too hard and get all your powder flying off. So let's put this away and then I'll heat it up. So look at all those cool lines done with those Zig embossing pens. And that is the silver, again, the silver detail. So you get really good coverage usually with the detail embossing powder. Now, if you can also see on the black, like I said, there's all these little specks of silver. I don't know if you can pick that up. And again, to get rid of those specks of silver, you would actually wipe your paper with a dryer sheet. I don't have any in the house right now, so I couldn't prepare my cardstock with that, but a lot of people find that really helpful, and you avoid those little specks. So that is how you do some fun embossing, and I hope you enjoyed this video. You can find some affiliate shopping links below in the video description where it says show more, and have some fun with your calligraphy and lettering and embossing. Thanks for watching.